You're listening to a production of the National Media Archive. To learn more or volunteer, go to nationalmediaarchive.com.
Ancient Egypt, 6,000 years of dynasties, gods, pyramids, and endless fascination. Museums are filled with monumental statues of monumental men. But look closer. Where are the women? Cleopatra takes the spotlight, but her image shrunk to coins leaves centuries of powerful women in the shadows. Long before Cleopatra, Egypt's story was shaped by extraordinary women whose influence still echoes. Women here held more rights than anywhere else in the ancient world. 4 trailblazers stand out, each bending power in ways that changed history. Start at the source. The earliest days of the pharaohs, the Old Kingdom, 4,500 years ago. Enter Hetep Heres, a mother, a queen, a life-giver. Her final resting place, just beyond the imposing Great Pyramid of Giza, built by her son, Pharaoh Khufu. Visitors come for the pyramids, but the true beginning lies in a small shaft carved into the plateau. 20 meters down, Hetep Heres' tomb, gold-covered furniture, silver headrests, bespoke silver bangles sized just for her arms. The first intact royal burial ever found, predating Tutankhamun by 13 centuries. Her tomb shaped this entire necropolis. Khufu buried his mother nearby to secure his own rebirth into the next world. Her titles still gleam in gold hieroglyphs on her throne: Mother of the King of Upper and Lower Egypt, Overseer of the Affairs of the Palace. Queen Hetep Heres commanded power through motherhood, the ultimate status in an afterlife-obsessed world. Yet she was the king's mother, never Pharaoh herself. For that, Egypt had to wait 1,000 years for a woman who broke every mold. Hatshepsut. Hatshepsut, a royal by birth, but her path to Pharaoh required political dexterity. At her husband's death, her stepson was too young to rule. She stepped in as regent, then crowned herself king. To an illiterate society, appearance was power. So Hatshepsut wore the crown, the false beard, the royal regalia, every detail engineered to declare, "I am Pharaoh." But looking the part wasn't enough. Hatshepsut built it. She reshaped Thebes with monumental works, the grandest, her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari. Carved into cliffs, its clean lines stand in sharp contrast to rugged rock. Sacred by design, built directly opposite the temple of Amun-Ra, aligned with cosmic order, a permanent statement that she, a woman, held divine right to rule. Beyond stone and ceremony, Hatshepsut led armies into Nubia, wielding the axe of conquest. She forged trade routes, sailing south to the land of Punt to bring back incense, gold, myrrh, precious cargo for Egypt's temples, mummies, perfumes. An alabaster vessel still holds the resin she imported. It sent a ghost from 3,500 years ago. Hatshepsut's obelisks at Karnak still stand. Pink granite spears almost 30 meters high, topped in gold and silver, catching dawn's first light to channel solar power into the heart of Egypt's spiritual capital. Her red chapel at Karnak reveals her central place in ritual, the pharaoh performing sacred rites before Amun, keeping cosmic chaos at bay. Her reign brought 2 decades of peace and prosperity, proof that power didn't have to come with a beard and a male body. Yet not all welcomed this. After her death, her stepson took sole power, erasing her image from monuments. But not her legacy. One more chapter in the story of ancient Egypt's women, where the crown was more than a symbol, it was proof that leadership had no gender. Hatshepsut's reign closed one door and opened another. A century and a half later, power in Egypt shifted again, this time not through conquest, but clever diplomacy and personal influence. Enter Nefertari, the loveliest one of all. Nefertari was more than a royal wife. Married young to Ramses the Second, Egypt's most prolific pharaoh, her presence stretched beyond the palace. Ramses the Second ruled for 67 years. He built statues the size of small buildings, with himself towering over everyone, even his wife, shown clinging to his colossal knee. But size wasn't everything. Behind the scenes, Nefertari shaped Egypt's foreign affairs with quiet force. At Abu Simbel, Ramses carved twin temples into Nubia's sandstone cliffs. The larger, a statement of his unstoppable power. But next door, a temple rose for Nefertari. Her colossal statues stand beside Ramses, but the crown on her head pushes her taller still. Her image sent a message down the Nile and across borders. This queen was no silent consort. Inside, Nefertari appears beside Ramses in vivid reliefs, arms raised, urging him forward as he executes enemies. Pharaoh swings the mace, Nefertari legitimizes the act. A royal double act, equal halves of power. Yet power had its limits. Traveling south with Ramses, Nefertari's health declined. She never walked inside her temple. She saw its statues from the river, then returned north, never to see it finished. She died soon after, buried in the Valley of the Queens. Her tomb, called the Sistine Chapel of ancient Egypt, glows with scenes so delicate, so brilliantly preserved that access is tightly restricted. On its walls, Nefertari appears as a goddess reborn, eyes rimmed in kohl, lips painted red, draped in gold jewelry. One scene stands out. The queen stands with Thoth, the god of knowledge and writing. She holds a scribe's palette, declaring herself literate, an uncommon claim for any royal, let alone a queen. In hieroglyphs, she says it plainly, "I am a scribe." Nefertari's letters reached far beyond Egypt's borders. Her diplomatic correspondence with the Hittites survives. Clay tablets sealed and dispatched to Anatolia. One letter, warm and generous, greets the Hittite queen as sister, offering gold and fine linen as gifts. A silver earring found in her tomb, Greek in style, hints at these wide connections. Egyptian royals wore gold like dust, but silver was rarer, imported from afar. On her ear, silver whispered her reach. Her final resting place tells its own truth. Nowhere in the tomb is Ramses the Second. The king who stamped his name across Egypt is absent in the place meant to carry Nefertari into eternity. The implication is clear. She stood alone, sovereign of her own legacy. Nefertari's skill as diplomat kept Egypt's fragile borders stable while Ramses built statues. But even she couldn't hold back decline. In the centuries that followed, Egypt staggered under corruption and invasion until a new power arrived, Macedonian Greeks led by Alexander the Great. Alexander's generals carved up his conquests. In Egypt, the Ptolemies, Greek rulers, revived the old game of women wielding power. One woman stood out, Arsinoe the Second. Arsinoe the Second, queen, pharaoh, living goddess. Her name echoes alongside the greatest rulers of Egypt's final golden age. After centuries of turmoil, Egypt was ready for another woman to seize the crown and reshape two worlds into one. Born into the powerful Ptolemaic dynasty, Arsinoe was the daughter of Ptolemy I, the Macedonian general who carved his piece of Alexander the Great's empire. Trained for politics from birth, she understood how to use marriage as strategy and myth as weapon. As a teenager, she sailed north to Thrace, modern-day Bulgaria, to marry the king, securing Greek alliances. But that husband died in war. Her second marriage, a power play that turned deadly, forcing Arsinoe to flee back to Egypt for survival. Survival was not enough. Back home, Arsinoe maneuvered herself into the ultimate position, joint ruler with her younger brother, Ptolemy II. Brother married sister. Egyptian tradition met Greek ambition. Together, they ruled Egypt and the Greek Mediterranean, merging two powerful cultures under one diadem. Coins minted during Arsinoe's reign tell the story in metal and myth. Her profile, serene, crowned with the Greek diadem, hair veiled and neatly coiled, the image of a Greek matron. But hidden in plain sight, a subtle curve just before her ear, a ram's horn. This was no decorative flourish. The ram's horn signaled divine connection to Alexander the Great, whose own coins showed him as the son of Amun-Ra, the Egyptian state god. One tiny symbol fused Greek conquest with Egyptian divine kingship, a masterstroke of branding. Arsinoe didn't stop at coins. She transformed Alexandria into a glittering crossroads for trade, science, and art. Precious stones, spices, silks, ivory, goods flooded into Egypt from as far as India and beyond. The city's bustling port, its famed library, and its lighthouse, one of the Seven Wonders, all thrived under her watch. But Arsinoe understood that wealth needed control. She and Ptolemy crafted an economic machine that documented every acre, every taxable harvest, every monopoly. Salt, oil, papyrus beer, all funneled revenue straight to the royal treasury. Yet her genius lay in more than money. Arsinoe wielded the power of symbols. Every temple across Egypt enshrined her alongside Isis, the Divine Mother. On Philae Island, Arsinoe's statue stood shoulder to shoulder with the goddess, blurring lines between mortal queen and immortal deity. For Egyptians, this made perfect sense. Here was a ruler who embodied the mother goddess's life-giving force. The crown Arsinoe wore stitched centuries together. The red crown for Lower Egypt, two tall feathers borrowed from Nefertari's iconography, twisted ram's horns in honor of Amun-Ra and Hatshepsut's divine patronage, and a blazing solar disk echoing back to Hetep, Heres, and the first queens who laid Egypt's foundations. Every element told a story. Arsinoe was not just a Ptolemaic queen. She was heir to every powerful woman before her. Under Arsinoe's rule, coins and crowns broadcast her authority far beyond Egypt's borders. Merchants in Greece clutched her silver drachmas. Priests in Thebes chanted her name in the same breath as Isis. Traders in the Red Sea ports unloaded spices and silk that funded libraries and temples. Her cult fused politics and divinity, an unbroken chain from Old Kingdom tombs to the marble columns of Alexandria. Yet even for Arsinoe, power came at a cost. Royal bloodlines tangled in ambition and betrayal. After her death, the dynasty would spiral toward the ultimate figure who absorbed it all, Cleopatra the Seventh. But Cleopatra didn't appear from nowhere. She was the product of centuries of formidable women who wrote power into Egypt's DNA. From Hetep Heres' tomb to Hatshepsut's temple, from Nefertari's letters to Arsinoe's coins, these women turned titles into strategy, lineage into leverage, and myth into reality. They carried Egypt through changing empires, foreign invasions, and shifting beliefs. Proof that in the ancient world, the crown could rest on any head capable of holding it high. Cleopatra the Seventh, the final heir to centuries of brilliant women rulers, stands as ancient Egypt's last great queen, the living culmination of every powerful mother, pharaoh, diplomat, and goddess who came before her. Her name remains the most famous, yet behind that name stretches the legacy of Hetep Heres, Hatshepsut, Nefertari, Arsinoe, a lineage Cleopatra carried onto the world stage as Egypt faced its last stand. Born in 69 BC, Cleopatra belonged to the same Ptolemaic dynasty. Arsinoe strengthened centuries earlier, her family tree twisted with intrigue, incest, and assassinations. Sibling married sibling, brother murdered sister, uncles poisoned nephews, all in the name of keeping power inside the family. And when Cleopatra's father, Ptolemy XII, died, the 18-year-old queen found herself ruling a country battered by debt, Roman interference, and betrayal from within her own bloodline. She rose to power not by brute force, but by mastering the game her ancestors perfected, blending Egyptian tradition with Greek statecraft, propaganda with personal magnetism, myth with ruthless realpolitik. Like Arsinoe, Cleopatra co-ruled with a brother, Ptolemy XIII. But when her brother's advisors turned on her, Cleopatra did not fade quietly into the background. She retreated to Syria, gathered an army, and plotted her return. Her comeback hinged on an alliance with Rome, the new superpower on Egypt's doorstep. Enter Julius Caesar. Cleopatra smuggled herself into Caesar's quarters, rolled in a carpet, a calculated spectacle. Within hours, the Roman dictator and the Egyptian queen formed an alliance that reshaped the ancient Mediterranean. Rome got Egypt's vast grain supply. Cleopatra secured her throne, but her power was never Caesar's charity. Cleopatra presented herself as the living embodiment of Isis, the goddess mother of all creation. Coins struck during her reign show her wearing the diadem, the ram's horn, the solar disk, echoes of Arsinoe's crown. Her portraits balanced Greek queen and Egyptian pharaoh, melding two worlds with every profile stamped in silver. The world took notice. After Caesar's assassination, Cleopatra maneuvered again, aligning herself with Rome's new strongman, Mark Antony. Together, they dreamed of carving an Eastern empire that could rival Rome's heartland. Cleopatra funded his campaigns, commanded ships and soldiers, and bore him 3 children, symbols of a new dynasty blending Macedonian ambition with Egyptian sovereignty. Cleopatra's Alexandria pulsed with life. Merchants traded silk and spices from India, gold from Nubia, cedar from Lebanon, and scrolls from every corner of the known world. Scholars studied in the Great Library. Philosophers debated in marble courtyards. In the royal palace, Cleopatra spoke 9 languages, a polyglot queen in an empire of many tongues. She negotiated with ambassadors, debated with priests, and tracked trade ledgers that made Alexandria the Mediterranean's beating economic heart. Yet, every triumph provoked enemies. In Rome, propaganda cast Cleopatra as a foreign seductress, a witch who bewitched noble Mark Antony and threatened Rome's moral core. The final blow came at the Battle of Actium in 31 BC, when the forces of Antony and Cleopatra faced Octavian, later Augustus, Rome's first emperor. Outmaneuvered at sea, Cleopatra's fleet turned back. Back in Egypt, the last gamble played out in the halls of her palace. In the end, Cleopatra chose to die on her own terms rather than march in Octavian's triumph. Legend says she used a snake, an asp, smuggled in a basket of figs, its venom a final royal statement. Her death ended 300 years of Ptolemaic rule, and with it, Egypt's 2,000-year experiment with women at the apex of power. Yet Cleopatra did not vanish into myth alone. She left a legacy that shaped the way rulers, especially women, projected power for millennia to come. Coins, statues, temples, hieroglyphs, the tools Hetep Heres, Hatshepsut, Nefertari, and Arsinoe used to declare their authority resurfaced wherever ambitious women reached for crowns. Even in death, Cleopatra's story remained inseparable from the women who paved her path. Her cult of Isis spread through the Roman Empire. Temples in Philly, once Arsinoe's domain, remained active centuries after Cleopatra's death, stubbornly clinging to Egypt's ancient gods, while Rome's new faith swept through the world. Archaeologists still sift through the sands for remnants of Cleopatra's lost palace, rumored to lie beneath modern Alexandria's harbor, where statues toppled by earthquakes sleep in the salt water. Nearby, broken pillars still bear inscriptions praising Isis, the mother goddess who shaped every Egyptian queen's image of herself. Together, these women built a civilization where daughters could rule like sons, where goddesses walked among mortals, and where power slipped free of any single gender's grasp. The story of ancient Egypt is more than pyramids and pharaohs cast in granite. It is the story of Hetep Heres' golden tomb, Hatshepsut's soaring obelisks, Nefertari's painted tomb, Arsinoe's crowned coins, Cleopatra's unstoppable myth. Each proof that in a world obsessed with kings, queens could shape history just as profoundly. Their legacy lives on, hidden in museums, carved in limestone, pressed into silver coins traded by merchants who never knew the names behind the faces. But for anyone who dares look past the giant statues of men, Egypt whispers a reminder: history's story has always belonged to more than just kings.